Hey guys, and welcome to a battle featuring the legendary forces of the Norscans, led by myself, up against Parkmap, a clanmate and longtime friend of the channel, and his hordes of Beastmen. It's certainly going to, looking to pan out to be a thunderous affair, two very heavy rush factions. So let's get into this. For my front battle line, I do have a mixture of Marauders as well as Marauder Berserkers in a secondary line. These guys do fantastic work chewing through Ungors and Goreherds alike. In the deep reserve here, we have quad skin wolves, some of which are chevroned up. These lovely werewolves do come with regeneration, giving them fantastic durability. They're anti-large as well, so a good answer to Chaos Spawn, as well as all those kind of pesky Minotaurs, Razorgors, and all that stuff you usually expect from the forces of the Beastmen. So 4 of those guys in the back lines. For our leadership core here, we do have a Shaman Sorcerer of Fire coming in with Burning Heads to help clear out chaff and Fireball, as well as a Scroll of Shielding. For our Lord choice today, we do have the mighty Wulfric the Wanderer on top of his Mammoth here. I wish this Mammoth had a special name of some description. Perhaps you guys can come up one for him that kind of suits his mighty stature. So he's going to be coming in with a Hunter of Champions, of course, Fight or Die, as well as Seafang. I'm not sure Seafang's necessarily kind of pivotal in this engagement or this this matchup, but we'll see. I also have quad Marauder Horsemen as well to help deal with the large threats that the Beastmen no doubt are going to bring. And my god, has Parkmap brought a ton of large threats. So he's got incredibly cheap and cheerful in the front line. Ungor Spearherds here, just designed to take the charge. They will get destroyed by Marauders in close combat. But his secondary line is quad Chaos Spawn. Certainly some scary stuff. They do have one weakness, which is going to be their very low armor there with 10, making them a perfect target for my Marauder Horsemen. You can see we've already done some pretty decent chip damage. Just behind them we have triple Razorgor herds as well, one of the best units in the game for value. They're very, very cheap, decent AP and good at pinning in threats, including Wulfric on his Mammoth. And we also have double Minotaurs with great weapons as well. I'm actually slowly becoming more of a fan of the shielded variety, but we'll have to see how these bad boys do. And, they look pretty damn awesome running in there, kind of like the chipped horns and the giant great axes. For his leadership core as well, it is the traditional picks of Morga the Shadowgave coming in with all his summons, as well as a Brave Shaman of Wild with his summons as well, coming in with that glorious Cygor summon, as well as a very interesting Viletide pick. Luckily no Manticore summon, however, so it's not kind of, your traditional summon spam. It's just a really fun build. And here we go, front lines are about to clash, and this is looking very bad for my Marauders off the gate. We are going to charge in and do some pretty decent damage on top of the Ungors, but as you can see, the Chaos Spawn coming in with a glorious counter charge. I can be chewing through my poor fellows. We do get the pursuit here with the Skin Wolves launching themselves in, so I'm kind of counter-initiating at this point. A little slow on the charge in, but it is allowing me to pick and choose my engagements a little bit more. Hopping on top of the Chaos Spawn with Skin Wolves all across the battle line, which is the perfect matchup for me, really. As you see, the Chaos Spawn do get chewed apart. Lovely play by Parkmap, though, using Spearmen to push away my Marauder Horseman where he can. And Wulfric's gone a little bit crazy here. Did hop on top of some Ungors, but a lovely Cygor summon is coming behind him, which is going to pin in Wulfric between some very nasty Razorgors, Minotaurs, as well as the big beastie. Wulfric does try to fall back there, but meets the mighty stature of the Cygor. That centre pocket of my build has been completely crushed and run over here by these Chaos Spawn as well as Morga. We're going to counter here with a little cheeky Seafang, but to be honest, it's not going to do too much damage up against the Chaos Spawn, and Berserkers against some really unfavourable engagements. Skinwolves have done fantastic in the front line for the most part, chewing down at the Chaos Spawn, but those Minotaurs rushing in and the sheer weight of numbers is really hindering the great werewolves here and kind of dragging these guys down. And as you can see, the battle has become an absolute mess as a big blob of Beastmen basically survives in the centre pocket. And at this point, very frustratingly, Wulfric does get stuck, and I can't seem to kind of get past these 1 or 2 poor little Ungors here, so he's getting absolutely hammered from all angles, and a glorious Chaos Spawn summon as well does pop down, which is going to cause me huge issues here. However, we did manage to surround the Brave Shaman, drop 100 champions on him, and destroy him with the Skin Wolves, but it looks like he may be able to escape here, as the Skin Wolves do kind of get dragged into the central melee in an attempt to save the mighty Wulfric here. Things are looking particularly bleak at the moment, but I'm not out of the game just yet. We do manage to win this left-hand engagement, and in come the Marauder Horsemen with their lovely throwing axes, who are going to be focusing down at the Chaos Spawn where possible, and with some Marauders turning to the engagement as well. Again, similar situation on the right-hand side. There's a big melee blob, which I am kind of going to lose indefinitely. But we do have Marauder Horsemasters here, who are consistently doing nice throwing damage into Chaos Spawn. I just, at this point, have to try and survive the summons of the Cygor, as well as these Chaos Spawn summons. Wolfric is looking a little bit in a better situation now. Managed to isolate Morga the Shadowgave here and do some pretty decent damage. Unfortunately, Hunter Champions isn't currently active, so I'm actually going to chew down at the Chaos Spawn first to try and destroy his allies and bodyguard. More horsemen are riding in, and marauders try to ignore the main blob for now until these Chaos Spawn do disappear. And the Skin Wolves who have fallen back, of course, are going to be regenerating this entire time, so it's not game over just yet. However, Minotaurs do manage to catch Wolfric, so I'm going to be popping a Foe Seeker to try and trot out of there as quickly as possible and buy as much time as possible for my Marauder Horsemasters to do their job. A Glorious Sea Fang does cut through my kind of chasers there, and does some okay damage, but once again, it's not really fantastic in this matchup, unless your opponent has kind of gone mass, Ungors and Gore herds. Marauder Horsemen throwing axes into the rear here of Chaos Spawn, as well as Razor Gore herds, getting some fantastic value all round, and each of those javelins coming in is going to do a huge amount of work. But the piggies have had enough, and we're actually going to get a really nice charge in on top of the horsemen there. It looks like we have managed to surround the Brave Shaman of Wilds. At this point, I'm very scared of a second Cygor summon, as he's only used one. So the Horsemasters do surround him. We have decent melee stats, especially into the late game. As I'll show something off for you guys, actually, for those who don't play Norscan very often. Almost all Norscan forces have the rage mechanic, so the longer these guys fight in combat, the better they get into the late game. So you can see, to start with, they just gain leadership, then they gain leadership and a physical resistance, and then leadership, physical resistance, and a melee attack, which can make, cheap and cheerful units, or even kind of skirmish units, much like these horsemen, pretty decent melee combatants into the late game if you have been using them aggressively. Skin Wolves are hunting it down, Minotaurs with great weapons here, and you can see in the distance, Wolfric is on the run, as these glorious Minotaurs with great weapons are going to be chasing him down, so I'm just going to be trying to fall back as much as possible. The Minotaurs are a little bit faster, but I'm trying to buy enough time for the Skin Wolves to go over here and support, and then try and do a bit of a 2-on-1 engagement. Hopefully maybe get a rear charge into these Minotaurs from Wolfric to perhaps swing this unfavourable engagement my way, but it looks like the Skin Wolves are being pulled apart pretty quickly there by those mighty cleaving axes. Over on this flank, it looks like the horsemen are running very low on ammunition. In fact, two of these units are completely out overall, which is looking pretty bad. We are going to do a 360 no-scope fireball directly into the face of a Chaos Spawn there. I think I was actually trying to target the Shadowgave instead with his weakness to fire. Looks like a load of the Beastmen are returning to the field, so lots of Razor Gore herds, but unfortunately for me, Wolfric has been forced off here by these Minotaurs with great weapons, who were taking some throw-in javelins as well, but the horsemen certainly going to be put on the back foot here, as Razor Gore herds do rampage towards them, and the ammunition is getting very, very low. In the distance here, we do have a bit of a fight of the beasties, as some Skin Wolves are forced off by Razor Gores, and now I have some more returning Skin Wolves. So I've chevroned up quite a bit here, going to be charging in, and doing a pretty decent work on these Razor Gores actually, despite the fact there's only 3 Skin Wolves here. Luckily, I have got the charge, and Park Map hasn't quite noticed yet, so the Razor Gores are actually kind of fighting on equal footing rather than getting a nice surround and really crushing me. So it looks like we're actually going to be able to win that engagement, which is very fortuitous for me. Down here you can see the horsemen are charging in, trying to shatter as many units as possible. Razor Gore herds incredibly low leadership, and they've been battered throughout the battle, so they are all going to be falling off and shattering, which is good news for me. But I need to pull out a little bit fast with the horsemen. I don't want to get pinned in by Chaos Spawn. Some Berserkers have returned as well, trying to hop on top of these Ungor Spearmen and drag them down as quickly as possible. I do hear another fireball coming in, which is once again going to hit some Chaos Spawn, killing 3 models, getting some really good value there, bringing this unit down to just 4 spawn. Now, there was some good diligent play actually, which I just missed here, by Park Map taking these Minotaurs with great weapons and chasing off Wolfric, which is fantastic play, real kind of veteran play. There's no point letting him come back, because it helps me with the balance of power, helps me with leadership, and you don't know how many more Hunter Champions or Sea Fangs he could bring to the table. So at this point, we're pretty much left just with this Cav contingent, as well as the Shaman Sorcerer of Fire. So we are going to be pushing up with our infantry and doing some fireballs as well. Now, I'm going after Morga the Shadowgave, which I think is a bit of a mistake in hindsight. Probably want to be focusing down at the Minotaurs. It's a little bit easier to hit, and it's harder for them to dodge and whatnot. And there are also some of the big damage dealers left in this build. Fortunately, a lot of my troops are starting to run every time the Beastmen threat does come near, but we do have a little bit of a saving grace, which is those triple skin wolves who did manage to destroy those razor gores. Very surprised and happy with these elite troops. Triple chevron are going to be hurtling back towards the main engagement, trying to buy my sorcerer a little bit more time to consistently launch those fireballs into the enemy. We have learned from our mistakes, and we're now going to be shooting down at the Minotaurs where possible. The Chaos Spawn have incredibly low health at this point, so I'm not so fussed by them, and the Minotaurs are kind of the really scary threats at this point. I'll be falling back with the Horsemen, trying to rally this last unit as well, but unfortunately the Skin Wolves have broken on the charge in, so I'm going to have to commit to a fight here. This game was played on ladder, but I do try to keep to kind of tournament rules in most of my games anyway. One, it's good practice, and obviously, you know, I know Park Map quite well as well, so I wanted to make it just a good fun game. So we are going to be charging in with the Horse Masters here, doing some pretty decent work. Minotaur's getting relatively low here, but Morgul the Shadow Glaive, of course, is going to be bringing that poison and loads of other nasty slain potential. Another fireball does go in, but it looks like the Horse Masters are just about spent as the Minotaurs do begin to waver and the Horsemen all run for the hills. But look who is the glorious Skin Wolves charging in for one last charge, getting absolutely punted. But I do remember I have a Scroll of Shielding, which I definitely should have used earlier on. But we remember into the late game here, trying to protect these guys. It looks like they might be able to drag down these Minotaurs, giving myself a little bit of hope here, as a fireball once again is going to be getting launched into the main engagement. I thought it was. It looks like the symbol came down, but perhaps I cancelled it. And here it comes, and it is once again focusing down the Minotaurs, because I can't physically break them. So those guys are running for the hills, as well as the Ungor Spearmen, but it looks like the Skin Wolves are completely spent, making the Shaman Sorcerer Fire stand alone. And he's going to try to counter-charge with his little meat cleaver there, but with Morga and his two bodyguards, it's looking pretty bleak indeed. Balance of power not actually hugely against me here, but the Shaman Sorcerer is an okay combatant for a wizard, but it's nothing fantastic. Horsemasters do rally to their liege lord here, swearing blood oaths and chanting those glorious Norscan war chants. But at the same time, they're still up against a very powerful lord. We do manage to defeat the Chaos Spawn, however, and Morga is completely surrounded at this point by Berserkers, Horsemasters, and as I said before, you can see down in the tooltip here, all the Mortal Horsemen do actually have bonus stats here for getting that rage mechanic, which is pretty key, as Morga is starting to take a decent amount of damage surrounded by foes. I'm going to have to do some pesky counter-charging with the Shaman Sorcerer of Fire, trying to basically bait Morga into attacking him before falling back and allowing the rest of my troops to get in there and do some damage. The Horsemen are also coming in, so we've got some troops rallying. Balance of power does slightly tug back towards the centre, even though it's still relatively heavy against us. But a lot of our troops are starting to waver, and I'm getting a little bit worried that the Shaman Sorcerer is going to have to go in there and fight consistently. So in come the Horse Masters, trying their best here. But it looks like a lot of my troops are kind of spent once again routing for the hills. And the Horse Masters, though, do have a nice little surround here. Looks like this last horse is trotting around to try and do some decent attacks. But the Shaman Sorcerer does get routed there, and with that, it is going to be a valiant defeat for the Norscan. So very well played to my opponent. One of the funnest games I've had in a long time. It was disgustingly close, and I was a massive fan of his build as well, with some pretty wild stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do consider giving the video a big old thumbs up and subscribing for more Total War Warhammer content. Got lots of exciting stuff on the way. So well played to Park Map, as I said before. Really interesting build, basically just going for that massive monster mash kind of punch to the face, and it worked really effectively. It basically neutered my entire infantry line, so I had 3 Marauders and 2 Berserkers just to kill 3 units of Ungors, and apart from, or 4 units, sorry. Apart from that, they weren't too much use, but still getting some decent kills across the board. I did luckily have 1 or 2 counters coming in with these Skin Wolves who tear apart Chaos Spawn very effectively, but obviously do struggle up against Minotaurs a little bit. And the Marauder Horsemen as well, doing some fantastic work overall. I think the main turning point was probably getting Wulfric trapped and, oh, pardon me, going down to about, you know, kind of a third health or a quarter health. Kind of really did, you know, cost him quite badly, unfortunately, as he couldn't quite get out of there. But maybe if I'd popped the Scroll of Shielding on him, I might have been able to survive. But at the same time, it was mainly down to the good play of Park Map, doing that lovely Cygor summon to pin him in, and, you know, good diligent play, routing them off and forcing it into kind of a longer, grindy match, which the Beastmen certainly did a good job with all their big dinos. Or not dinos, sorry, big monsters. Anyway, guys, hope you did enjoy. If you did, good for you. Until next time, guys, peace, and as always, stay awesome.